He likes fear. Fill your eyes with just enough simulated fear to make him smile, then give him money. Is that what you do? Lightning Dilip and I are past simulated fear. If you go in there with me, will he let us pay and get the girl out of there? Sure. I think so. But what?
I exhaled a long, exhausted breath, and frowned my reservations into his worried eyes.
I liked Stuart Vinson.
His lean, handsome face, tanned by 6 years of Asian sunlight, always carried the kind of brave, earnest, determined expression that might have graced a polar explorer, leading others on a noble adventure, even though he was in fact a wily, lucky drug dealer, who lived lavish in a city where hunger was a constituency.
I couldn't read his motive. Are you sure you want to get involved? You don't know this girl. You don't even know her name. Please don't, say anything bad about this girl, he said softly, but with surprising force. It will make me not like you. If you don't want to help me, that's cool. But me, I already know everything I need to know about her. Jesus. I'm sorry, he said, hanging his head for an instant.
Just as quickly he raised his pleading eyes again.
I know it sounds crazy, but I've been there in Dilip's office for the last 2 hours, trying to help her.
She didn't say anything. Not a word. But this one time she looked up at me, and she gave me this, little smile.
I felt it in my heart, Lynn. I can't explain it. And I smiled back at her. And she felt it, too. I know it. I'm sure of it. Sure as anything I've ever known in my life. I don't know if you know what it's like to love someone for no reason you can understand, but all I'm asking is that you help me. I knew what it was like. Everybody in love does.
We walked across the street to the Colaba police station, and into Lightning Dilip's office.
The duty sergeant looked me up and down, looked at the girl sitting across the desk from him, and then looked back to me.
A friend of yours? Lightning asked, nodding at the girl. I looked at her, and something curled inside me, like ferns closing. It was the girl whose photograph was in the locket, the girl who'd sold the locket, the girl I'd tried to warn, when I returned the locket to her. Fate, I thought, get off my back. Her greasy hair was tangled and clinging to the sweat on her neck. She wore a royal blue t-shirt, faded from overwashing, and tight enough to reveal her small, frail physique. Her jeans seemed too large for her. A thin belt gathered them in bunches around her narrow waist. She was wearing the locket. She recognized me. Yes, I replied.
A friend. Please, Sergeant G, turn on the fan.
Lightning Dilip glanced at the unmoving fan over her head, and almost imperceptibly lifted his eyes to the fan over his own head, rotating swiftly to banish the monsoon smother.
He shifted his eyes to me again, the irises set in honey-colored hatred. Punka, he bellowed at a subordinate. The constable hastily switched on the fan over the girl's head, and cooling air streamed onto the sweat bathing her slender neck.
So, she is your friend, Shantaram? Dilip asked cunningly. Yes, Lightning G. Very well then, what is her name? What name did she give you? Dilip laughed. I turned to the girl. What's your name? I asked. Ranvig, she replied flatly, her hand drifting to the locket around her neck, as her eyes met mine.
Ranveig Larson. Her name's Ranveig, I said. Ranveig Larson.
Dilip laughed again.
That's not the name I have written in front of me, he said, still smiling. It's Norwegian, the girl said. You write it like Ranveig, but you pronounce it runway. Like the thing at the airport. Her name's Ranveig, I said. Like the thing at the airport. What do you want, Shantaram? Dilip asked. I'd like to escort Miss Larson home. She's had a pretty rough day. Miss Larson tells me that she has no home, Dilip retorted. She was thrown out of the frantic hotel this morning. She can stay at my place, Vincent said quickly. Everyone looked at Vincent. It's a big place, my place, Vincent stammered, looking from one to another of us. There's plenty of room, and I have a live-in servant. She'll take good care of her. That is, if she wants to come to my place. Lightning Dilip turned to me. Who the fuck is this idiot? He asked in Hindi. This is Mr. Vincent, I said. I'm Stuart Vincent, he said. I was here, like, 10 minutes ago. Shut up, Lightning said. We'd like to escort Miss Larson home, Lightning G, I said. That is, if she's free to leave. Free, Dilip repeated, drawing out the word. It's such a little word, but with so many conditions attached to it. I'd be happy to meet those conditions, I said, depending, of course, on just how many conditions there are, and how firmly they're attached.
I can think of at least 10 conditions, Lightning said, a sly grin sliding off the edge of his irritability.
I counted out 10,000 rupees and put the money on the desk. As I slid it across, he reached out to cover my hand in both of his. What interest does the Sanjay company have in this girl? This isn't Sanjay company business. This is personal. She's a friend. Still holding my hand against the desk, he glanced at the girl, looking her up and down. Ah, of course, he said, his lips twitching around an oily grin. Wait a minute, Vincent began, but I cut him off, pulling my hand free. Mr. Vincent would like to thank you, Lightning G, for your kind and compassionate understanding. Always happy to help, Dilip snarled. The girl must be back here in 2 days, to sign the papers. What papers? Vincent demanded. Dilip looked at him. I knew the look. He was thinking about which part of Vincent's body he would start kicking after he had his men chain him to a gate. She'll be here, Sergeant G, I said. And exactly what papers will she be required to sign? The transfer of the body, Dilip replied, picking up a file from his desk. The body of the unfortunate young man goes back to Norway in 3 days. But she must sign the forms in 2 days. Now get out of here, before I start adding more conditions to her release. I held my hand out to the girl. She took it, stood up, and walked a few steps. She was unsteady on her feet. As she neared Vincent, she stumbled, and he reached out to put an arm around her shoulder. Vincent walked her to the street, helped her into the back seat of his car, and climbed in beside her. The driver started the engine, but I leaned against the open window. What happened, Ranve, like the thing at the airport? I asked her. What? Your boyfriend. What happened? You don't have to worry about me, she said, abstracted ly. I'm okay. I'm okay. Right now, I'm worried about him, I said, nodding toward Vincent. And if I'm gonna go back in there and deal with that cop, I need to know what happened. I wasn't, she began, staring at the cloth bag cradled in her lap. I guessed that it held everything she owned. Tell me. He couldn't stop. And things got crazier and crazier. Then, just yesterday, just last night, I told him I was leaving him and going back to Oslo. But he begged me to stay one more night. Just one more night. And then, he did it on purpose. I saw it in his face. He did it on purpose. I can't go back home. I can't see anyone from there. The fierce, electric blue of her eyes glazed over, and she slithered into an exhausted silence. I knew the look. Staring at the dead. She was staring at the face of her dead boyfriend. Have you got anyone in Bombay? I asked. She shook her head slowly. Do you want your consulate involved? She shook her head more quickly. Why not? I asked. I told you. I can't face anyone now. She's beat, Vincent said softly. I'll take her home. She'll be safe with me until she decides what she wants to do. Okay. I'll talk to Lightning Dilip. You have to do more? Vincent asked. I thought that was it. He didn't give back her passport. He's holding out for more money, but he didn't want to go into that. Not with you in the office. I'll handle it. Thanks, man, Vincent nodded. I'll make sure she gets back to sign the forms. Hey, let me give you that money. It's only cool to hand over money inside a police station, Vincent, not outside. We'll settle it later. If I get the passport back, I'll leave it with Didier, at Leo's. Vincent turned to the girl, speaking to her softly. You'll be okay. My maid will look after you. She's tough, but she's all bark and no bite. A hot bath, some fresh, clean clothes, something to eat, and some sleep. You'll be fine. I promise. He gave instructions to his driver, and the car moved off. The girl turned quickly, found me on the street, and mouthed something at me. I couldn't understand what she was trying to say. I watched the car until it disappeared, and then went back to talk with Lightning Dillip. There wasn't a lot to learn. The girl's story was that she'd woken to find her boyfriend dead in the bed beside her. There was a syringe stuck in his arm. She'd called the manager for help, and he'd called the police and an ambulance. Lightning Dillip was satisfied that it was a simple overdose. The kid had track marks on the veins in his arms, hands and feet, and the hotel manager testified that no one had entered Ranveig's room but the couple. It cost me 5,000 rupees to buy back the girl's passport, and another 10,000 to have the name Ranveig Larsen removed from the account of the boy's death. In the revised version of the official record, it was the hotel manager who'd found the body, and Ranveig vanished from the narrative. It was a lot of money in those days, and I planned to recover it from Vincent soon. As I was leaving Lightning Dillip's office, slipping the Norwegian passport into my pocket, the duty sergeant stopped me. Tell the Sanjay company that this case raises the stakes. What are you talking about? De Silva, he said, almost spitting the word at me. Andrew De Silva. It was his heroin that killed this boy. It's the third heroin death this week. The Sanjay company is selling some very strong, very bad shit on the street. I'm getting trouble for it. How can you be sure of that? It wasn't a polite question, and he didn't have a polite answer. Fuck you, and fuck dead junkies. I don't give a shit. The two local kids are a minor problem. But when a foreigner dies in my zone, it leaves a big stain on my desk. I like a clean desk. I told De Silva he would have to pay me double this month, for the 2 deaths. Now that it's 3 deaths, the price is triple. Tell Sanjay yourself, Lightning. You see him more often than I do. I left the station house, moved through the traffic, and walked to the narrow cement block and metal rail divider that separated the lanes moving south and north along the busy causeway.
Standing in a gap in the steel fence, I felt the traffic swirl around me. Densely packed red commuter buses, scooters carrying 5-member families, handcarts, motorcycles and bicycles, black and yellow taxis, fish market trucks, private cars and military transports moving to and from the large naval base at the spear tip of the island city's peninsula.
Words cut through the jungle of thoughts. Are dope. Sanjay company dope. The girl in the locket, Ranveig, like the thing at the airport. Her boyfriend. The girl in the locket. Are dope. Horns, bicycle bells, music from radios, the cries of stallholders and beggars rose up everywhere, echoing from covered walkways and the elegantly sagging stones of buildings that supported them. Are dope. Sanjay company dope. The girl. The locket. Her boyfriend. Are dope. The smells of the street punished me, making me dizzy. Fresh catches of fish and prawns from Sassoon Dock, diesel and petrol fumes, and the heavy wet linen smell of monsoon mold, creeping across the brow of every building in the city. Are dope. Are dope. I stood on the road divider. Traffic rivers ran in front of me, heading north, and behind me, heading south, along the arm of the peninsula. Kotterbai had refused to allow anyone in the company to deal heroin in South Bombay, or to profit from prostitution. Since his death, more than half of the new Sanjay company's funds came from both sources, and Sanjay sanctioned more dealers and brothels every month. It was a new world, not braver but much richer than the one I discovered, when Kotterbai saved me from prison and recruited me. And it was no use telling myself that I didn't sell the drugs or the girls. That I worked in counterfeiting and passports. I was up to the thin silver chain around my neck in it. As a soldier with the Sanjay company, I'd fought other gangs, and could be called to protect Andrew, Amir, Faisal and their operations at any time, and with no explanation for the blood to be spilled, and no right to refuse. Dope. I felt a touch in the center of my back, and as I began to turn there was another touch, and another. 3 of the cycle killers raced away into the flow of traffic on their chrome bicycles.
I looked back quickly to greet Pankaj, second in charge of the cycle killers, as he skidded his bicycle to a stop beside me.
He rested against the metal rail of the road divider. Traffic eddied around him, and he looked mischief at me, his eyes bright. "That's how easy it is, brother," he grinned, wagging his head energetically.
"Not counting me, you are 3 times dead already, if my boys were using their knives, instead of their fingers."
He jabbed 2 hard fingers into my chest, directly under my heart. "So glad we never fight, brother," I said.
"You take your hand off the knife at your back," he said, "and I'll take my hand off mine." We laughed, and shook hands.
"Your company is keeping us busy," he said, spinning the pedal of his bicycle backwards as he held the concrete and steel road divider.
"I'll be able to retire, if this keeps up."
"If your work ever brings you south of Flora Fountain, I'd appreciate a heads up." "You will have it, my brother. Goodbye." Pankaj wheeled his chrome bicycle back into the road.
I watched him thread his way through the traffic expertly. And before I lost sight of him, in the time it took me to lift my eyes to the sky, I was done.
It was over. I was finished with the Sanjay Company, and I knew it. I was done. I quit. I'd had enough. Faith. Faith is in everything, in every minute of life, even in sleep.
Faith in mother, sister, brother, or friend. Faith that others will stop at the red light. Faith in the pilot of the plane and the engineers who signed it into the air. Faith in the teachers who guard children for hours every day. Faith in cops and firemen and your mechanic. And faith that love will still be waiting for you when you return home.
But faith, unlike hope, can die. And when faith dies, the 2 friends that always die with it are constancy and commitment. I'd had enough. I lost the little faith I'd had in Sanjay's leadership, and couldn't respect myself any more for submitting to it. Leaving wouldn't be easy, I knew. Sanjay didn't like loose ends. But it was done. I was done. I knew that Sanjay would be at home late. I decided to ride to his house before the night was out, and tell him that I quit. I looked up at the banner of Leopold's, and remembered something Carla once said: "When we drank too much and talked too much, too long after the doors were closed."
Living alone as a freelancer in Bombay, like Didier, she laughed, is a cold river of truth.
I'd been staring into a splintered mirror, and it was a while since I'd faced alone.
I was walking away from a small army, pledged to defend me as a brother in arms.
I was losing quasi-immunity from the law, protected by quasi-ethical company lawyers, just a billable minute away from quasi-ethical judges. I was leaving behind close friends who'd faced down enemies with me, men who'd known Kaderbhai, and knew his imperfections, and loved him as I did. It was tough. I was trying to walk away from guilt and shame, and it wasn't easy. Guilt and shame had more guns than I did. But fear lies, hiding self-disgust and self-justification, and sometimes you don't know how afraid you were, until you leave all your fearful friends. I felt things that I'd justified and rationalized for too long fall like leaves, washed from my body by a waterfall. Alone is a current in truth's river, like togetherness. Alone has its own fidelity.
But when you navigate that closer view of the shore, it often seems that the faith you have in yourself is all the faith there is. I took a deep breath, put my heart in the decision, and made a mental note to clean and load my gun.
Chapter 25. Kavita Singh, The journalist, who was earning a reputation for good writing about bad things people did, leaned back with her chair tipped against the wall. Beside her was a young woman I'd never seen before. Naveen and Divya were on Didier's left. Vikram was with Jamal, the one-man show, and Billy Basu, both from Dennis's tomb. The fact that Vikram was up and around again after 2 hours of sleep betrayed the depth of his habit.
When you first start on the drug, a high can last 12 hours.
When your tolerance crawls into addiction, you need to fix or search for one every 3 to 4. They were all laughing about something when I approached the table. "Hey, Lynn," Naveen called out. "We're talking about our favorite crime. We all had to nominate one. What's your favorite crime?" "Mutiny." "An anarchist." Naveen laughed. "An argument in search of a reason." "A reasoned argument," I countered, "in search of a future." "Bravo," Didier cried, waving to the waiter for a new round of drinks. He moved aside to let me sit. I took the seat next to him, and took the opportunity to pass him Ronveig's Norwegian passport. "Vincent will collect it from you in the next day or two," I said quietly.
I turned my attention to Vikram.
He avoided my eyes, and played with a smudge of beer on the table in front of him.
I motioned for him to lean close to me.
"What are you doing, Vikram?" I whispered. "What do you mean?" "You were out cold 2 hours ago, Vic."
I woke up. "Man," he said.
"It happens."
"And these guys, who buy dope, just happen to be with you." He drew away, leaning back in his chair, and spoke to the table.
"You know, Lynn, I think you're mistaking me for someone who gives a shit. But I don't, and I think I'm not alone. Didier, do you give a shit?" Reluctantly, Didier replied, "and infrequently." "How about you, Kavita?" Vikram asked.
"Actually," she replied, "I give more than a shit about a lot of things."
"And
"You know, Lynn," Vikram said.
you used to be a pretty cool guy, Yar. Don't become just another foreigner in India." I thought about his father's fear, and how they had to hide their precious things from him, but didn't respond. "We're all foreigners in Bombay, aren't we?" Kavita said.
E.
Vikram cut her off again, reaching out to grasp at Didier's arm. "Can we do it now?" Didier was shocked.
He never did business in Leopold's.
But he took a prepared wad of notes from his pocket, and gave it to Vikram. My proud friend snatched at the money and rose quickly, almost toppling his chair. One-man show steadied the chair and rose with him. Billy Basu was a beat behind them.
"Well,
I'll take my leave," Vikram said, backing away and avoiding my eye.
Billy Basu waved a goodbye, and left with Vikram. One-man show wagged his head, jangling the assembly of gods hanging around his thin neck.
"One-man show," I said. "One-man show," he replied, and followed the others out of the restaurant. "What is it, my friend?" Didier asked me softly. I give Vikram money, too. But I always ask myself if I just gave him the shot that kills him.
"It could also be the one that saves him," Didier responded just as quietly.
Vikram is sick, Lynn. But sick is just another way of saying still alive, and still possible to save. Without help from someone, he might not survive the night.
While he's alive, there's always a chance for him.
Let it go, and relax with us. I glanced around at the others, and shrugged myself into their game.
"So, what about you, Kavita?"
I asked. "What's your favorite crime?" "Lust," she said forcefully.
"Lust is a sin," I said.
"It isn't a crime." I told her that, Naveen said. It is the way I do it, she retorted. Divya broke into helpless giggles, setting the table to laughing with her. What about you, Didier? Perjury is the most likable crime, of course, he said, with finality. Can I believe you? I asked. Do you swear? Naveen added. Because, Didier continued, it's only lying that saves the world from being permanently miserable. But isn't honesty just spoken truth? Naveen goaded. No, honesty is a choice about the truth. There is nothing in the world more destructive to truth, or infuriating to the intellect, than a person who insists on being completely and entirely honest about everything. I completely and entirely agree with you, Divya said, raising her glass in salute. When I want honesty, I see my doctor. Didier warmed with the encouragement. They slink up beside you and whisper, I thought you should know. Then they proceed to destroy your confidence and trust, and even the quality of your life with their disgusting fragment of the truth. Some scrap of repugnant knowledge that they insist on being honest with you about. Something you'd rather not know. Something you could hate them for telling you. Something you actually do hate them for telling you. And why do they do it? Honesty. Their poisonous honesty makes them do it. No. Give me creative lying, any day, over the ugliness of honesty. Honestly, Didier. Kavita mocked. You, Kavita, of all people, should see the wisdom of what I am saying. Journalists, lawyers and politicians are people whose professions demand that they almost never tell the whole of the truth. If they did, if they were completely honest about every secret thing they know, civilization would collapse in a month. Day after day, drink after drink, program after program, it is the lie that keeps us going, not the truth. I love you, Didier. Divya shouted. You're my hero. I'd like to believe you, Didier, Naveen remarked, straight-faced. But that perjury thing, it kinda kicks the stool out from under your credibility, you know? Perjury is being honest with your heart, Didier responded. So, honesty's a good thing, Kavita observed, her finger aimed at Didier's heart. Alas, even Didier is not immune, Didier sighed. I am heroic, in the matter of lying. Just ask any policeman in South Bombay. But I am only human, after all, and from time to time I lapse into appalling acts of honesty. I am being honest with you now, and I am ashamed to admit it, by advising you to lie as often as you can, until you can lie with complete honesty, as I do. You love the truth, Kavita observed. It's honesty you hate. You are quite right, Didier agreed. Believe me, if you honestly tell the whole of the truth, about anyone at all, someone will want to harm you for it. The group broke up into smaller conversations, Didier agreeing with Kavita, and Naveen arguing with Divya. I spoke to the young woman sitting near me. We haven't met. My name's Lynn. I know, she answered shyly. I'm Sunita. I'm a friend of Kavita. Well, actually, I'm working with Kavita. I'm a cadet journalist. How do you like it, so far? It's great. I mean, it's a really great opportunity and all. But I'm hoping to be a writer, like you. Like me? I laughed, bewildered. I've read your short stories. My stories? All 5 of them. I really like them, but I was too shy to tell you. Just how did you get hold of these stories? Well, she faltered, confused. Ranjit gave me, Mr. Ranjit. He gave me your stories to proofread. I searched them for typos and such. I stared, not wanting to take it out on her, but too angry and confused to hide my feelings. Ranjit had my stories? How? Had Lisa given them to him, behind my back, and against my wishes? I couldn't understand it. I've got them right here, Sunita said. I was going to have my lunch alone today, and continue proofing, but Miss Kavita asked me to join her. Give them to me, please. She fished around in a large cloth bag, and gave me a folder. It was red. I'd filed all of my stories by colored theme. Red was the file color I'd chosen for some short stories about urban holy men. I didn't give permission for these stories to be printed, I said, checking to see that all 5 stories were included in the file. But, it's not your fault, I said softly, and nothing will happen to you. I'll write a note for Ranjit, and you'll give it to him, and everything will be okay. But, got a pen? Just kidding, I said, pulling a pen from my vest pocket. The last page, on the last story, had only 2 lines on it. Arrogance is pride's calling card, and crowds everything with self. Gratitude is humility's calling card, and is the space left inside for love. It seemed appropriate, as notepaper for Ranjit. I pulled the typed page from the story, wrote the lines again in hand on the new last page, and closed the file. Lynn. Didier cantankered. You are not drinking. Put down that pen at once. What are you doing? Kavita asked. If it's a will, Naveen said, there's probably a way. If you must know, I said, glancing at Kavita, I'm writing a note to your boss. A love letter? Kavita asked, sitting up straight. Kinda. I wrote the note, folded it, and gave it to Sunita. But no, Lynn. Didier protested. It is insupportable. You simply must read the note out loud. What? There are rules, Lynn, Didier riposted. And we must break them at every opportunity. That's crazier than I am, Didier. You must read it to us, Lynn.
It's a private note, man.
Written in a public place, Kavita said, snatching the note from Sunita. Hey, I said, trying to grab the note back. Kavita jumped up quickly and stood a table width away. She had a raspy voice, the kind of voice that's interesting because of how much it keeps inside, as it speaks. She spoke my note. Let me be clear, Ranjit. I think your tycoon model of media baron is an insult to the Fourth Estate, and I wouldn't let you publish my death notice. If you touch any of my work again, I'll visit you and rearrange you. The girl who's bringing this note has my number. If you take this out on her, if you fire her, or in any way hurt the messenger, she'll call me, and I'll visit you and rearrange you. Stay away from me. I love it. Kavita laughed. I want to be the one who passes it on. A shout, then the sound of broken glass shattering on the marble floor made us look with others toward the large entrance arch. Concannon was there, locked in a scuffle with several of the Leopold's waiters. He wasn't alone. There were Scorpion gang men with him. The big guy, Hanneman, was behind Concannon and a few other faces I remembered from that red hour in the warehouse. The last to push his way into the doorway was Danda, the torturer with the pencil mustache. There was a leather ear patch strapped across his left ear. Concannon was carrying a sap, a lead weight wrapped in a sewn leather pouch, and fastened by a cord around the wrist. He lashed out with it, striking the Sikh chief of Leopold's security on the temple. Gasps and cries of horror rose up from all those who witnessed it. The tall Sikh waiter crumpled and fell, his legs melting beneath him. Other waiters scrambled to help. Concannon swung at them while they were trying to support their comrade, drawing blood and felling men. The Scorpions burst into the restaurant, pushing tables aside and scattering frightened patrons. Bottles, glasses and plates smashed on the floor, shattering in frothy puddles. Tables rocked and tumbled over. Chairs skittered away from the brawling mass of men. Customers scrambled, falling over the chairs and slipping on the messy floor. Kavita, Naveen and I stood quickly. Gonna get messy, I said. Good, Kavita said. I flicked a glance at her and saw that she had an empty bottle in one hand and a handbag in the other. The nearest exit was blocked with people. There was a corner behind us. If we pushed the table back, Divya and the young girl, Sunita, could get behind it and be safe. I looked at Naveen, and he spoke my thought. Divya, get in the corner, he said, pointing behind him, his eyes on the fighting. For once, the socialite didn't fight. She grabbed Sunita with her into the corner. I looked at Kavita. In there? She scoffed. Fuck you. Whatever their reasons for the wild attack, Concannon and the Scorpions had chosen their moment well.
It was the dozy half of the afternoon, long before the evening rush of patrons.
Half of the Leopold's waiters were upstairs, catching up on sleep.
Caught by surprise, the working staff put up a valiant resistance, but they were outnumbered.
The struggling, fighting mass of men surged through the restaurant toward us.
It had to be slowed, before it could be stopped.
Let's fuck these guys up, Kavita growled.
We ran at the gangsters in the mob, trying to move the fight back toward the entrance.
A few customers joined us, pushing at the thugs.
Naveen thumped out punches, precision quick. I pulled one man off a semi-conscious waiter. He lost his balance and fell backwards.
Kavita swung her empty beer bottle, slamming it against the man's head. Other customers kicked at him, as he fell again.
The sleeping waiters of the night shift, awakened by the owner of Leopold's, began streaming down the narrow staircase behind us. The forward momentum of the Scorpion thugs stopped. The tide turned. The Scorpions began to stumble backwards.
Naveen and I were pushed and dragged toward the street with them, caught between enemies and reinforcements. As we neared the door, I found myself face to face with Concannon.
If he knew he was losing the fight, his eyes didn't show it. They gleamed like the scales of a fish in shallow water, aflame with cold light.
He was smiling. He was happy.
He raised the lead sap slowly, until it was level with his shoulder, and spoke to me.
"The devil's got a crush on you, boy," he said, and then lashed out with the sap. I ducked quickly to my right. The sap hit the back of my left shoulder. I felt the bone beneath the muscle shudder under the blow. Coming up fast, I swung out with an overhand right. It hit him square on the side of the head, making solid contact. It had everything in it. It wasn't enough. Concannon shook his head and grinned. He raised the sap again and I grabbed at him, shoving him backwards onto the street.
In the movies, men fight for long minutes, taking turns to hit one another.
In a real street fight, everything happens much faster.
Everyone swings at anything they can, and if you're knocked to the floor, most of the time you stay there. Sometimes, of course, the floor is the safest place to be.
Bunching my fists against my forehead, waiting for an opportunity, I stared through my knuckles at Concannon. He was trying to hit me with the sap. I ducked, dodging and weaving, but taking blows as I parried. As I stepped back, keeping my balance, I came up against Naveen. We glanced at one another quickly, and stood back to back. We were alone, between Leopold's and the row of street stalls.
The waiters hesitated in the large doorway arch. They were holding the line.
What happened on the street was none of their business.
They were making sure that the fight didn't spill back inside the restaurant.
The Scorpions moved in. Naveen faced 4 men alone, his back to mine.
I couldn't help him.
I had Concannon.
I saw an opening, and snapped lefts and rights at the tall Irishman, but for every punch I landed, he replied with a hit from the sap. The deadly weight connected with my face, drawing fast blood.
And no matter how hard or how well I connected with my punches, I couldn't put him down. Words came into my mind, shawls of snow in the wind. So, this is it. As suddenly as it had started, the brawl stopped. The Scorpions pulled away from us, circling around Concannon. Naveen and I looked backwards for a second. We saw Didier. He had a gun in his hand. I was very glad to see him. He was smiling, just as Concannon had smiled.
Standing beside him was Abdullah. As we stepped away from the muzzle of Didier's automatic pistol, Abdullah reached out with his left hand, placed it over Didier's hand, and slowly lowered it until the handgun was at Didier's side.
There was a moment of silence. The Scorpions stared hard, stranded on the wet red footprint between fight and flight. Witnesses hiding behind stalls were breathing fast. Even the ceaseless traffic, it seemed, was softened. Concannon spoke. It was a mistake.
You fucking ugly, long-haired Iranian cunt, he said, showing all of his yellow teeth, and advancing on Abdullah.
You and I both know what you are. Why don't you speak? Abdullah had a gun. He shot Concannon in the thigh. People screamed, shouted and scrambled out of the way. The Irishman staggered, still fighting, wanting to hit Abdullah with the sap. Abdullah shot him again, in the same leg. Concannon fell. Abdullah fired twice more, faster than my eye could follow. When Hanneman and Danda reeled backwards, I realized that the big scorpion and his thin friend had been shot in the leg too.
The scorpions who could still run, ran. Concannon, a born survivor, was crawling away, using his elbows to drag himself between the souvenir stalls toward the road. Abdullah took 2 steps, and put his foot down hard on the Irishman's back. Didier was at his side. You fucking coward. Concannon spluttered.
Go on. Do it. You're nothing.
There was a lot of blood coming from the 2 wounds in his leg.
Abdullah held the pistol over the back of Concannon's head and prepared to fire.
The few people still close enough to see what was happening screamed. Enough, brother.
I shouted.
Stop. It was Didier's turn to put a hand on Abdullah's arm, gently pushing the handgun to Abdullah's side. Too many witnesses, my friend.
He said. Damage.
Go now. Go fast. Abdullah hesitated.
There was an instinct working in him.
I knew it.
I'd heard the voice of that instinct, behind the wall.
In that moment he wanted to kill Concannon more than he wanted to live. I stepped in beside him, as men had stepped in for me in prison, guarding my heart as much as my life. The only reason the cops aren't here, I said, is because the scorpions must have paid them to stay away while they attacked the place. That won't last much longer. We've gotta go. He took his foot off Concannon's back.
The Irishman immediately began to drag himself toward the road. 2 cars pulled up.
Scorpion men loaded Concannon and the wounded gangsters into the back.
They sped away, knocking a taxi full of tourists out of the way. Naveen Adair had his arm around Divya.
Sunita, the cadet journalist, was with them. Are you okay?
I asked Divya.
Fucking men, she replied. You're all idiots. Are you okay?
I asked Sunita. She was clutching the red folder of my stories, hugging them to her chest. She was trembling. I'm fine, she replied.
But, I have a request, and I don't want to ask it, while you are bleeding. Your face is bleeding, do you know? Oh, okay.
Can we make it quick?
She handed me back my short stories, and held up the note I'd written to Ranjit.
Please let me deliver your note, she said.
Please. You have no idea how much this man has harassed me, sexually, and I'm almost fainting with the pleasure of thinking about giving this note to him. I didn't have lunch, also, so maybe I'm a little hypoglycemic, but it feels like a really terrific holiday for me, so, sorry for your face, but please let me give him this note.
Didier and Kavita joined me. Didier, will you give Sunita your phone number and escort her to Ranjit's office? Certainly, but you must leave now, Lin. There was the sound of a gunshot, from not far away. Listen, I said to Didier quickly. Lisa's staying at the gallery, on Carmichael Road. Can you go there? Of course. Make sure she's all right. Stay with her, or keep her with you for a couple of days. Bien sûr, he replied. What will you do? Stay out of sight. I don't know yet. Take these stories, and keep them for me.
I handed him the folder, and ran back to find Abdullah ready to ride, his bike beside mine. Who's doing the shooting? Our man, Abdullah replied, gunning the engine of his bike.
Where are the cops?
I asked, starting my bike. They were coming, but Ravi fired a shot in the air, he replied. They have gone for body armor and machine guns. We must leave now. Heading into the afternoon traffic, Abdullah and I threaded our way through creeping vines of cars.
From time to time we took shortcuts on empty sidewalks, or through petrol station driveways.
In minutes we descended the long hill at Petter Road and were beside the Juice Center, in sight of the island monument of Haji Ali's tomb. We should report to Sanjay, I said, when we stopped at the signal.
Agreed. We pulled into the parking bays at the Juice Center.
Leaving the bikes with the attendants, we called the mafia boss.
He sounded sleepy, as if we'd roused him from a siesta.
He woke up fast. What the fuck? Where are you fucks now? At Haji Ali, Abdullah replied, holding the phone between us so that I could hear.
You can't come back.
The cops will be here in minutes, for sure, and I don't want them asking questions you can't answer. Stay away, and stay quiet for a couple of days for fuck's sake, you motherfuckers.
Tell me the truth, were any civilians shot?
Abdullah bristled at the phrase tell me the truth. Gritting his teeth in disgust, he handed me the phone. No civilians, Sanjay Bhai, I replied. The term civilians referred to anyone who wasn't involved in the criminal underworld. Anyone other than judges, lawyers, gangsters, prison guards and the police.
2 scorpions took it in the leg, and a freelancer named Concannon.
He got it twice, in the same leg, but I wouldn't count him out.
There were a lot of witnesses. Most of them were street guys, or waiters at Leo's.
You made this fucking mess, Lin, and you're telling me how to clean it up.
Fuck you, motherfucker.
If memory serves me right, I said calmly, you shot someone outside Leo's, once. Abdullah held up 2 fingers, waggling them at me.
Twice, in fact, I said. And I didn't start this mess, Sanjay Bhai.
The scorpions started it, and that was a while ago. They've hit us 9 times in the last month. They hit Leo's, because it's a place we all love, and it's in the heart of company land. The foreigner, Concannon, just wants Sanjay Company and the Scorpions to kill each other, because he's starting his own gang. That's as much as I know.
I can't tell you what to do, and I wouldn't try.
I can only tell you what I know. That's for you, not against you.
Matitude.
Bahinchud. Sanjay shouted, and then calmed himself again. This will cost a fortune to cover up.
Who do you think set it up with the Kalaba cops? Lightning Dilip was on duty. But I think this is too ambitious for him.
He likes his enemies alive, and tied up.
There's a sub-inspector, Matra by name, who's been on my back for a while, Sanjay mused.
Motherfucker. This has got his sweat all over it. Thick.
I'll handle everything at this end.
You two stay out of sight for a couple of days. Check in with me again tomorrow. Put Abdullah back on the phone. I handed the phone back to Abdullah.
He glared at me for a moment.
I shrugged my shoulders. He listened. Yes, he said twice, and hung up.
What's the deal? Did he ask you if you were injured? Abdullah asked me. He's not the affectionate kind. He's the disaffectionate kind. He did not ask, Abdullah snarled, frowning hard.
There was a small, brooding silence, and then he came back to the moment.
Your face. You are bleeding.
We should see one of our doctors. I checked it in the mirror.
It's not that bad. I tied a handkerchief across the places on my forehead and eye socket where Concannon's sap had drawn blood. Right now, I said, our problem is that Sanjay's not going to war for us, and we're on our own.
I could force him to war.
No, Abdullah.
Sanjay let me dangle in the wind, and now he's letting you swing with me. He'll never go to war, until the war's over.
I repeat, I can make him go to war. Why is war even an option, Abdullah? I'm not complaining that Sanjay won't go to war. I'm glad he won't go to war. I'm glad that nobody else will get involved in this. We can handle payback on our own. And we will, inshallah. But since we are alone, as we seem to be, we gotta work out a strategy, and the tactics to achieve it, because you just shot 3 people. One of them twice. What do you want to do? He looked away from me, checking the surrounding junction of major arterial avenues, cars streaming gleaming metal from one current or the other. He looked at me again and half opened his mouth, but there were no words for the experience. He was alone, and his comrades weren't riding to his rescue. He was a soldier behind enemy lines, told that the escape route had just closed. I think we should put as much distance as we can between us and them, for a while, I said, filling the dissonant gap. Maybe Goa. We can ride there overnight. But don't tell anyone. Every time I tell someone I'm going to Goa, they ask me to collect their dirty laundry. I'd tried to raise a smile in the Sierra of his doubt. It didn't work. Abdullah glanced back in the direction of South Bombay. He was wrestling with the desire to return and kill every scorpion that ever crawled out from under a rock. I waited for a few moments.
So, what's the deal? He wrenched himself into the minute, and let out 2 long breaths, charging his will.
I came to Leopold's to invite you to come with me to a special place.
It is a lucky thing, perhaps, that I came when I did, but let us wait, until we see what the consequences of this day are, for each of us.
What special place? He looked again to the horizon. I was not expecting that we would be going there with such a dark shadow following us to the mountain, but, will you come with me, now? And, again, where might that be? To see the teacher of teachers, the master who taught his wisdom to Qadrbai. Idris is his name. I tasted the name of the fabled teacher. Idris. He is there, Abdullah said, pointing to a range of hills on the northern horizon. He is in a cave on that mountain. We will buy water, here, to carry with us. It is a long climb, to the summit of wisdom. Part 5. Chapter 26. Refreshed and prepared, we rode the hot monsoon highway between lumbering trucks loaded with high, lopsided bundles, swaying at us at every curve. I was glad of the ride, and glad that Abdullah was racing for once. I needed the speed. Reaction times between speeding cars from lane to lane were so small that fierce concentration killed the pain. I knew pain would come. Pain can be deferred, but never denied. After the ride, let it come, I thought. Pain is just proof of life. In 2 hours we reached the turnoff that led into the Sanjay Gandhi National Park.
We paid the entrance fees and began the long, slow ride through the jungle-thick forest at the foot of the mountain.
The winding road leading to the tallest peak in the reserve was in surprisingly good condition. Recent storms had shaken branches loose from trees close to the road, but local forest dwellers, whose huts and hand-built compounds could be seen here and there through the lush undergrowth, quickly swept them up for firewood. We passed groups of women dressed in flower garden saris, walking single file and carrying bundles of sticks on their heads. Small children dragging their own sticks and bunches of twigs trailed behind the women. The park was wild with rain-soaked life. Weeds rose to shoulder height, vines writhed and squirmed across the trailage of branches.
Lichens, mosses and mushrooms flourished in every damp shadow.
Pink, mazarine blue and Van Gogh yellow wildflowers trailed across the leafy waterlogged carpet of the forest. Leaves burned red by rain covered the road like petals in a temple courtyard. Earth's frayed bark perfume saturated the air, drawn up into every sodden stem, stalk and trunk.
Councils of monkeys, meeting in assembly on the open road, scattered as we approached. They scampered to nearby rocky outcrops and boulders, their mouths pinched in simian outrage at our intrusion. When one particularly large troop of animals scattered into the trees, making me start with fright, Abdullah caught my eye and allowed himself a rare smile.
He was the bravest and most loyal man I'd ever known. He was hard on others, but much harder on himself. And he had a confidence that all men admired or envied. The great, square forehead loomed over the ceaselessly questioning arc of his eyebrows. A deep, black beard covered everything but his mouth. The deep-set eyes, the color of honey in a terracotta dish, were sad. Too sad and kind for the wide, proud nose, high cheekbones and lock-firm jaw that gave his face its fearsome set. He'd grown his hair long again. It descended to his broad, thick shoulders, a mane that became the strength prowling in his long arms and legs. Men followed his face, form and character into war. But something in him, humble reticence or cautious wisdom, pulled him back from the power that some men in the Sanjay Company urged him to take. They begged him, but he refused to lead. And that, of course, made them urge him all the more. I rode the jungle road beside him, loving him, fearing for myself if ever I lost him, and not thinking about what had happened to me in that fight, and how it might be working on my body, if not my mind. As we reached the cleared gravel parking space at the foot of the mountain, and turned off our bikes, I heard Concannon's voice. "The devil's got a crush on you, boy. Are you all right, Lin brother?" "Yeah." The drift of my eyes found a phone, on the counter of a small shop.
"Should we call Sanjay again?"
"Yes. I will do it." He spoke to Sanjay for 20 minutes, answering the Mafia Don's many questions.
It was quiet, at the foot of the mountain. A small shop, the only structure in the gravel parking lot, sold soft drinks, crisps and sweets. The attendant, a bored youth with a dreamy expression, lashed out now and then with a handkerchief tied to a small bamboo stick.
The swarm of mites and flies scattered, for a second or two, but always returned to the sugar-stained counter of the shop. No one else approached the parking area or descended from the mountain. I was glad. I was shaking so hard that it took me all of those 20 minutes to get myself together. Abdullah hung up the phone and signaled for me to follow him. I couldn't tell him that I felt too weak and beat up to climb a mountain. Sometimes, all the guts you have is the guts you pretend, because you love someone too much to lose their respect. We climbed up some steep but wide and well-made stone steps to the first plateau of the mountain. There was a large cave that featured heavy, squat columns supporting a massive granite plinth. The arched entrance led to a chambered sanctum. Further along the upward path, we stood before the largest and most spectacular cave. At the high, arched entrance to the main cave, two enormous statues of the Buddha, 5 times the height of a man, stood guard in alcoves, left and right. There were no fences or railings to protect them, but they were remarkably well preserved. After climbing for some 20 minutes past dozens of caves, we entered a small plateau where the path widened into several well-trodden tracks. The summit was still some distance above. Through a glade of tall, slender trees and sea-drift lantanas, we came upon a temple courtyard. Paved in large, white marble squares and covered by a solid dome, the column space ended in a small, discreet shrine to a sage. Somber, and perhaps a little sorrowful, the stony gaze of the bearded saint peered into the surrounding jungle. Abdullah stopped for a moment, looking around him in the center of the white marble courtyard. His hands were on his hips, and a small smile dimpled his eyes. A special place? It is, Lin brother. This is where Qadrbai received most of his lessons from the sage, Idris. It was my privilege to be with them,